What if I told you that the most powerful military giant in West Africa was just forced to its knees, not by missiles or tanks, but by the sheer unbreakable will of one young leader who refuses to bend to foreign masters? Can you even imagine 11 elite Nigerian soldiers standing before Captain Ibrahim Traoré, realizing in that moment that all the power they thought they had was nothing compared to the spirit of a man who will not be a puppet? And here's what should shake every American to their core. This might be the beginning of the end for the financial systems that have kept the entire world in chains for generations. Something absolutely unprecedented just happened in the heart of the Sahel that has the political elites scrambling and the colonial powers in Paris shaking with rage. 11 Nigerian military personnel found themselves detained in Burkina Faso after their aircraft violated sovereign airspace without authorization. In the old days, a regional powerhouse like Nigeria would have flexed its muscles, made threats, or called in favors from Western embassies. But under Captain Ibrahim Traoré's leadership, those days are over. The rules have been rewritten. After days of mounting tension that had the whole region holding its breath, Traoré officially authorized the release of these soldiers and their equipment. But here's the part that changes everything. He only did so after the Nigerian government did something nobody saw coming. They sent a high-level diplomatic envoy to deliver a formal, written apology to the Burkinabe people. Not a quiet phone call, not a backroom deal, a public admission of wrongdoing. For those of you in the diaspora watching from America, for those who have felt the crushing weight of systemic injustice for your entire lives, doesn't this ignite something deep in your soul? There's an ancient saying that an army of sheep led by a lion will always defeat an army of lions led by a sheep. Today, we're watching that truth unfold in real time. This isn't about a simple border dispute or a flight path error. This is about the reawakening of dignity that was stolen from us centuries ago. We're witnessing a collision between two completely different visions of Africa. On one side stands the establishment, the giants who follow scripts written in London, Paris, and Washington. On the other stands a small, determined nation that finally said, "No more." This is David facing Goliath. Except this time, Goliath had to apologize. But ask yourself, why did the mighty Nigerian administration, backed by all the power of Western interests, decide to bend the knee so quickly? What does this mean for regional stability and the stranglehold of the US dollar on African trade? Before we expose the master strategy behind Traoré's chess move, hit that like button and subscribe to join this movement for truth. Share this with one person who needs to understand that Africa is no longer anyone's playground. If you believe the era of puppet leaders is finished, type "Africa Rise" in the comments right now. Let's go deep into what actually happened on that tarmac in Ouagadougou, because the sanitized media version is hiding the real intensity of this confrontation. We're talking about 11 high-ranking Nigerian military officers and sophisticated military aircraft being held under the watchful eyes of Burkinabe forces. You need to understand the geography to grasp why this is a massive power play. Nigeria is the heavyweight champion of West Africa. Their military budget dwarfs every neighbor. Their economy dominates the region. But when those jets crossed into Burkinabe airspace without proper clearance, they didn't find some weak nation ready to look away. They found a people who decided their borders are sacred. Put yourself in the boots of those soldiers for just a moment. You come from a country accustomed to being the regional boss, the one calling all the shots. You fly into what you assume is just another neighbor's backyard, only to find yourself surrounded by men who aren't intimidated by your flag, your equipment, or your reputation. Captain Ibrahim Traoré didn't care about Nigeria's GDP or who was funding the government in Abuja. He saw a violation of his people's sovereignty, and he acted decisively. This wasn't some technical navigation error. In the world of high-stakes geopolitics and shadow conflicts, this was a test to see if the new Sahelian leadership would blink when a giant came knocking. But Traoré is built differently. He didn't rush to cameras making threats. He didn't release angry statements. He simply held the line with quiet strength. He kept those soldiers and equipment exactly where they were, and for days, the entire world watched as tension mounted. The elite in Nigeria probably thought they could make a few phone calls, get a Western diplomat to smooth things over, and business would continue as usual. But those old playbooks don't work anymore. When you're dealing with a leader who sleeps on a simple mat and puts his life on the line for his country every single day, your manipulation tactics become powerless. The turning point came when Nigeria's administration realized Traore would not budge until his nation received the respect it deserved. They had to dispatch a special envoy. Think about the magnitude of that moment. The giant of Africa sent a high-level messenger not to demand anything, but to deliver a formal written apology. This wasn't a casual, "our bad." This was an admission that they violated sovereignty and that Burkina Faso was absolutely right to detain them. In the honor-based culture of the Sahel, where dignity matters more than gold, this apology echoed like thunder all the way to the power centers in Washington, Paris, and Brussels. For those of you watching from the United States, you might wonder why any of this matters to your daily life, your wallet, or your security. Here's the brutal truth the talking heads won't share. When West Africa is unstable or when leaders are controlled by outside powers, it creates ripple effects that eventually hit your gas prices, your grocery bills, and your retirement accounts. We're talking about a region sitting on some of the planet's most valuable resources. When leaders are weak or simply doing the bidding of foreign masters, wealth gets drained and instability grows. But when you have a leader like Traoré demanding respect, it forces a new kind of stability built on mutual honor rather than exploitation. Nigeria's apology signals that the old ways of doing business are failing. It proves that even the most powerful nations in the region are realizing you can't just steamroll your neighbors anymore. There's a sense of justice being served that people have waited decades to witness. This is bigger than 11 soldiers going home. It's about the fact they only went home after acknowledging the sovereignty of a nation the West pretends doesn't matter. Think about what was at stake. If Traoré had been weak, he might have sold his country's dignity for political favors. If Nigeria hadn't apologized, we could have seen military escalation setting the entire region ablaze, sending energy prices through the roof, and creating humanitarian chaos that would reach American shores. Instead, we witnessed a masterclass in quiet power. Traoré proved you don't need to shout to be heard. You just need to be right and be brave enough to stand firm. The moment those Nigerian soldiers saluted before their release was pure gold. It wasn't just military protocol. It was recognition of superior leadership. These are men trained in elite academies, and they were looking at a young captain who outplayed politicians and generals. They saw a man who actually stands for something real. As they boarded their aircraft to return to Nigeria, they weren't leaving as enemies but as witnesses to a new era. This event is a crystal clear warning to anyone who still thinks Africa can be treated like a 19th century colonial map. The people are awake. The soldiers are recognizing who the real leaders are. As we watch these 11 men reunite with their families, we must ask, how many more times will the establishment have to apologize before they realize that the spirit of the people cannot be crushed by bigger armies or bigger bank accounts? There's that ancient wisdom again. An army of sheep led by a lion will always defeat an army of lions led by a sheep. Right now, in West Africa, we're watching this truth manifest. On one side, you have Nigeria, massive population, huge economy, military, that should dominate the continent on paper. But a giant is only as strong as the heart leading it. Many are looking at President Tinubu and seeing someone behaving like a lamb being led to slaughter by Western interests. On the other side stands Burkina Faso, economically tiny compared to Nigeria, no vast oil reserves or international clout. But it's led by Captain Ibrahim Traoré, a man who doesn't wear designer suits or vacation in European capitals. He wears his fatigues, carries his rifle, and stays with his people. He is the lion in this story. What we just witnessed proves that a lion doesn't need to be the biggest animal in the forest to command respect. He just needs the most courage. When you examine Tinubu's leadership, you see a familiar pattern. It's the career politician more concerned with relationships with President Macron and Washington power brokers than with the dignity of his own soldiers. This is why Nigeria found itself in such an embarrassing position. They assumed they could fly into Burkina Faso airspace because they're the giant. They thought rules didn't apply because they usually do the West's bidding. But they forgot there's a new spirit in the Sahel. They forgot that when a lion guards the gate, you don't walk in without invitation. This is a lesson for every leader who thinks money and hardware can replace character and sovereignty. Tinubu represents the old guard, the version of Africa the West loves, because it's easy to control. But Traore represents something that terrifies the establishment. He represents the return of the African lion, a generation tired of being told what to do by people who don't even live on the continent. To truly understand why this matters, look past the Capitol buildings and into the eyes of a man like Amadou. Amadou is a 5-year-old father of 5 in a village near the border. For decades, he's worked the same patch of dry earth, trying to feed his children. His face is a map of Sahelian struggle. His hands are calloused, his back bent from years of labor in a system designed to keep him at the bottom. Amadou remembers previous leaders who arrived in expensive vehicles promising change, only to fly to Paris the next day while people continued suffering. For him, sovereignty isn't political theory, it's the difference between dignity and despair. Most of his life, he's watched his country's resources carted away by foreign corporations, while his village lacked clean water. But something changed for Amadou when he heard about those 11 Nigerian soldiers. Sitting with village elders under a baobab tree, listening to a battery-powered radio, he heard how elite troops had to stand at attention and salute Captain Ibrahim Traoré. Amadou felt something he hadn't truly experienced in 40 years, pure, unadulterated pride. He didn't see it as military victory, but as justice victory. For the first time, he felt his leader was standing up for him. He saw that even a humble man who understands the people's struggle can make the powerful take notice. Think about Amadou's injustice. Decades of aid that never reached his village. Relatives forced to leave their homes for work in unwelcoming lands. Whether you're in a Burkina Faso village or a Chicago neighborhood, the feeling of being marginalized by elite favoring systems is identical. When Amadou saw those soldiers salute, he saw the world rebalancing. He saw that small people can no longer be ignored. His pain is deep watching children go hungry, while the land is rich with gold and minerals. The anger of knowing leaders who should protect you are instead shaking hands with those keeping you down. This is the emotional battlefield Traoré fights on. He's not just fighting a border dispute. He's fighting the legacy of humiliation. When he demanded that apology from Nigeria, he demanded it for every Amadou across Africa. He was declaring that dignity is not for sale, and borders are not playgrounds for those claiming superiority. This apology is a massive blow to the established order. This wasn't a navigation error. In global intelligence and power plays, there are rarely true accidents. This looks like a calculated probe, testing if the young lion in Ouagadougou was truly as vigilant as claimed. And the puppet master behind the curtain? Signs point to the Élysée Palace in Paris. President Macron is watching his colonial empire crumble piece by piece, and he's desperate to stop it. France lost Mali, lost footing in Niger. Burkina Faso became the resistance heart. When France loses the Sahel, it loses more than prestige. It loses access to gold, uranium, and strategic depth that allowed it to play global superpower for decades. But Macron can't send French troops without international outcry. Instead, he uses proxies leaders more loyal to Western handlers than African soil. This is where Tinubu enters the frame. As ECOWAS head, he's positioned as the enforcer for Western interests. The West needs Nigeria to be the big brother keeping rebels in line. When those 11 soldiers crossed into Burkina Faso airspace, it was likely a message. We can go wherever we want, and there's nothing you can do. They expected Traoré to be intimidated, to make frantic calls to mediators. They miscalculated the resolve of a man who already stared down death to liberate his people. By detaining those soldiers and refusing release without formal apology, Traoré didn't just win a local dispute. He checkmated the entire Western strategy in the Sahel. He forced Nigeria's most powerful man to admit in writing that the old might makes right rules no longer apply. This sent panic waves through Washington and Brussels. The Pentagon is watching closely because every time a leader like Traoré stands up and wins, US dollar influence and Western military hegemony in Africa weakens. They're terrified of a domino effect where every global South nation realizes they don't have to follow the script anymore. As those 11 soldiers return to their families in Nigeria, let us not simply turn the page. We must sit with this moment and understand the profound spiritual shift it represents. Whether you're on Sahelian red soil or navigating New York's concrete jungles, this wasn't just diplomatic resolution. It was demonstration of new power, not from foreign-funded guns or central bank vaults, but from unyielding dignity of people who've decided they've had enough of being the world's footstool. Captain Ibrahim Traoré has shown us a path many thought closed forever. He's proven that when we sit as brothers, when we look each other in the eye without Western mediators whispering in our ears, we can find solutions honoring our shared humanity. We don't need Paris phone calls to treat neighbors properly. We don't need Washington summits to secure our borders. Pan-Africanism isn't a relic. It's the living, breathing heartbeat of our future. The realization that our challenges are internal, so our solutions must be internal. To the young people watching, the era of waiting for permission is over. You have the brains, the resources, and now the blueprint. You don't have to flee across dangerous seas to find a future. You can build that future right where you are if you demand leaders who actually represent you. To our elders, who've seen 60 years of disappointments, let this be the moment you find peace. The seeds of freedom you planted with sweat and tears are finally sprouting. This is a movement, not just a video. It's a movement toward united Africa, where a Lagos businessman can trade in Ouagadougou without a dozen visas or foreign currency. An Africa where we speak with one voice. If we unite with the same resolve Traoré showed, demanding that apology, no power on earth can stop us. If you believe Africa's best days are ahead, if your heart beats for the freedom of every marginalized person, then subscribe and share this message. Let the world know we're no longer silent. Type "Banham" in the comments if you're praying for protection of courageous leaders. Type "I stand with Africa" if you're ready to be part of the generation that finally breaks the chains. The world is watching. The lion is no longer sleeping. May the ancestors guide us and may justice prevail. Africa is rising, and there's nothing they can do to stop it.